Hello, and welcome to the video about emotional intelligence. So, I really like this topic because, it cracks me up. Like sometimes you'll see people on social media or you'll overhear people saying, I am very emotionally intelligent. I know how to do this and I know how to do that. And then, like, right after they say that, they do something that's not really emotionally intelligent. So, it cracks me up. So, anyway, we're going to go about learning about this. And I do want to explain that anything that I discuss in this video is implied that I hope that you understand that this is growth, right? Emotional intelligence in quotient, it'll sometimes be called, is about growth. Um, so understand that if you're at point A in as a young adult, that as an older adult, you may be at point E or F. So it's just allow yourself room to grow and then take those growth opportunities instead of leaning to defensiveness. Um, just growth and openness. Anyway, so emotional intelligence basically refers to your ability to identify and manage your own emotions as well as the emotions of others, right? So, emotional intelligence is generally said to include a few skills, right? So, namely, of course, emotional awareness or the ability to identify and name one's emotions. I like to tell clients to, because more times than not, people will say that I'm angry or I'm frustrated, and it will be in that umbrella. So I will often pull out a feelings wheel and I will say to my clients, okay, I want you to identify feelings. And I do a large feelings wheel. I don't do the little one because I want to make sure that they're taking and they're considering these feelings. It also gives them, time to really try on what they're feeling. And so they're not allowed to look at anything that's in the anger or sadness. Well, not sadness, but in the anger area, because that would be too easy. So they're allowed to look at everything else and then talk about how they're feeling. Because if you say that I'm angry and frustrated, but what you really are is hurt and confused and disappointed, you'll never address those feelings because you've couched it in anger. And a lot of times when we're angry, we're taught to just kind of get over it, so to speak, right? And you wind up being, um, though you wind up having those feelings and not addressing them. Okay. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Um, you also need the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving. And because if you do feel confused and disappointed, let's problem solve. Like, what do you do with that? Especially if it's coming from another person. To solve this issue, you may have to communicate, right? You also need the ability to manage your emotions, which includes regulating your own emotions and, when necessary, helping people do the same, right? Somebody has to be the emotionally mature one if you're getting into this big knockdown, drag out fight with another person. Somebody has to say, okay, it seems like we both have some really intense feelings. Let's take a pause. Let's figure out what we're feeling and then let's communicate it. Or I feel like we're not hearing each other right now. Let's take a break and talk about this as soon as we can. Like, I don't like having conversations in highly emotional states because I know as a therapist that a lot of times when you have um, arguments with people in a highly emotional state or communication. Let me say, if you have communications with people in a highly emotional state, things aren't being conveyed in which they should be conveyed in a way that a person will understand and a way that you guys can problem solve. Like, how do we fix this issue so that it won't be long standing? And so, how self aware is an emotionally intelligent person? Because awareness is a big part of it, right? Emotionally intelligent people are highly conscious of their own emotional state, even the negative ones, right? From frustration or sadness to something more subtle. You're able to identify and understand what you're feeling, and you're able to name the emotion, right? So you won't have to, excuse me, pull out the feelings wheel. It'll be right there in your mental Rolodex. This is how I'm feeling, right? And you can also express what you want and need. And so people that are emotionally intelligent can manage those emotions, even if the emotions that come up is I'm frustrated and I can't think of another one. You'll be able to manage that frustration, right? By telling yourself, I know I'm feeling frustrated right now, but I don't have the time to tap into that. But I'm going to question myself later. But for right now, I'm going to get through this. And that's the management piece. I'm going to get through this so that I can process. Um, because of this ability to manage your emotions, emotionally intelligent people have high self confidence and they're realistic about themselves, right? Like people with, you know, emotional intelligence don't really, they just have a sense of themselves, right? Because you have to think about it. If you know what you're feeling, you don't have to ask questions about it. If you know how to manage it, then you're doing something pretty good, right? And so that brings up the question of regulation, right? A person with a high EQ or emotional intelligence, they're not really impulsive or hasty with their actions, right? Because they're tapped and in tune with what they're feeling, and they're able to make a decision about what do I do next. They think before they act. Um, this translates into emotional regulation. Sometimes you'll see little kids, like having tantrums, having full out fits on the floor. And those are typically kids that aren't good at emotional regulation. And a lot of times you'll see that behavior in people who have difficulty communicating, who can't communicate or have a limited vocabulary. um, and so I do want to point out, and I don't think I said so previously, but communication to me is a part of that emotional intelligence. So, um, also, emotional regulation is, it's a good, you have the ability, excuse me, to reduce how intense your emotions feel in that moment, especially with reminding yourself, okay, is some of that anxiety? Am I jumping to conclusions? What's going on that I am having this intense of a reaction to something? So you take your anger, anxiety, or whatever down a notch, and that technique is typically called down regulation. So that means you'll have that initial check in your chest or wherever you feel anger or frustration or anxiety in your body. Then you just kind of talk to yourself. You soothe, you ask yourself questions, you do all these things to figure out where you are with this, and then you do the down regulation. I don't need to be at a 10 in this situation when it's actually a 2. The emotionally intelligent people, again, are able to shift gears, to lighten the mood, both internally and externally, right? Those people are typically not people who hold grudges. So you won't see them like a month later and they're ready to take your head off, right? So, emotionally intelligent people are, tuned into their emotions and of others, right? It's You can be sensitive to emotional signals and you're able to interpret those emotional signals. And also, they're good at, if they don't understand the emotional signals, to ask questions like, I noticed that your brow is furrowed. Are you okay? Is everything good? Did you need to talk to someone? And allow that person to say, I'm okay. Like, I don't know what you're reading, but I'm good. Okay, that's fine. Cool. I'm going to move on. You move on, and we'll just kind of keep doing what we're doing. Um, you know, and I think some of this, being able to recognize um, that emotionally intelligent people can be more empathetic, right? They're able to understand the emotions of others, like I said previously. And I'm mentioning it again because I want you to know how this is tied to empathy, right? One is if you're aware of how you're feeling and how you operate in your feelings, then it might not be difficult for you to guess the feelings of someone else. Also, if you don't feel like you have a handle on it, you can also communicate, hey, what's going on? Um, those are some of my favorite words. Hey, what's going on? Like, things seem like they shifted with you. What's going on? And I guess because I've been doing therapy for so long, I can tell when someone has shifted emotionally. And then, again, that's my favorite question. Like, what's going on? I can see there's a shift. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're feeling. And if we have to, we'll get out our trusty feelings wheel. So, the empathetic are genuinely supportive of other people in their lives. Like whatever your choice is, I'm supportive of that. Um, Emotionally intelligent people can easily modulate their emotions to match the mood of the other person as well, right? Like if I'm sitting somewhere and I'm just pretty much neutral, but you come in excited, like, hey, I'm excited with you. What's going on? Like, depending on how you walk in, if you walk in smiling, I'll instantly smile in agreement with you. I don't know what it is, but I'm happy you're happy. Um, you know, so um So, of course, like in naming all these benefits, you understand that, of course, being emotionally intelligent is linked to a range of benefits, right? You may perform better academically because of better decision making abilities. Understanding, for example, if I'm overwhelmed, let me take a break from studying and then I can come back. You can have an overall greater success in life because when you learn how to read certain things, you operate in a different way, right? And sometimes, emotional intelligence can also be linked to what they call cognitive intelligence, which is very weird because cognitive is a fancy word for thinking. So thinking intelligent always cracks me up. So let's talk about what it'll take to improve your emotional intelligence. Like we talked about the fact that at the beginning that you can grow your emotional intelligence, right? You can work on that. You can figure out what to do. So how do you improve self-awareness? So I do want to say the people that are comical. Like there's this thing on social media now about people who are saying, well, my therapist told me I was too self aware, so I don't need therapy. Uh, I hope a therapist is not telling someone there that because even therapists can use a therapist. So, and nobody's so self aware and enlightened that they can't um, be open to another person's insight and wisdom. That's what we're here to do. Like to me, bonding is a part of sharing and sharing, yada, 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 yada. Right. So let me not get off track. I was just doing the old person meandering thing. So how do you improve your self-awareness? Ask for feedback. I am the queen of feedback. I want to know, like how I'm doing, if I hit the mark. And I knew that this was a growth point for me because as a young person, I did not like people giving me feedback. I was very self conscious if someone offered feedback to the point sometimes that I would either want to fight or fuss at them because I'm perfect. What do you mean? You have some feedback for me. Um, Keeping a journal. Keeping a journal is great. You get to explore your feelings, you get to understand how your brain works a little bit better. One of the things I suggest when it comes to journaling, because I've run into a lot of clients that do just kind of the negative rehearsing when they journal, do some positive insights also. Because again, you're not, we're multifaceted individuals, meaning that we are we are three dimensional. So we're not all negative, we're positive also. So give yourself those allow yourself to have those kind of insights also, rather. Learn new skills, get yourself out there, learn new things and try. And so a lot of times we learn things in the way we fail, right? People are uncomfortable with failure. And you need to know if you're uncomfortable with it. And if you are, why? Meditate. Meditating is great for people who can meditate. I like guided meditation because I am one of those people that I'm always thinking, not in the sense of anxiety, but I'm super creative. So there's always some idea in my head that I need to figure out how it works and what to do to make it work. Um, but guided meditation helps. Music will also help me pay attention because I'm in tune, whatever the notes are, whether the arrangements are, that helps, right? And I'm only mentioning those things because you may feel the same way. Because a lot of times when people feel like they can't meditate, they feel like they're too anxious to meditate, and that's not necessarily it for some people. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings. If something comes up in your body, if something comes up in your brain, take a pause. Like, what was that? What is that? I need to know. Pursue your passions. So if there are things that you are excited about, happy about, that bring you joy, pursue it, right? Practice mindfulness. I love mindfulness because what it does, mindfulness is a practice of connection. It makes you very aware of what you're eating, what you're doing. There is a mind, body, and connection there that's very important. And a lot of times when we're operating in autopilot, we don't even understand um, what we're feeling. I think I used this example like last year or the year before. Is I used to work in the mall and they had a water fountain. It was so loud, and I didn't realize how loud it was and how it operated in the back of my brain until it shut off at 9 o'clock at night. And my whole body would untense, right? Um, because I had to go about the day and I wasn't mindful of what was going on in my body, I didn't even realize that I was in a hypervigilant state for more than 8 hours. Um, when that fountain was on. So it was really great to realize that after the fact. Um, Another thing is reflecting on your experiences, right? So I had a client who went on a date. She went on a date, and this guy made her cry on the first date in the bathroom, right? So I'm mentioning the date because she actually wound up in a multi-year relationship. I can't remember how many years it was with this gentleman, and he was continuously abusive throughout the relationship. But she remembers crying on that first date. And when she went into the bathroom to cry, she said she just kind of threw everything out of her mind and she felt like she was being sensitive and to just kind of get over it, right? And so to me, if she had went home and reflected on that experience a little bit more instead of being excited about like having this opportunity to date this person, then she would have really understood that, okay, should I be crying on the first date? Should I be demeaned? Should I be belittled on the first date? Mm, probably not. This may not work for me, right? It's already unhealthy. So I just, reflect on your experiences, set goals for yourself. A lot of times when we set goals for ourselves, we set them too high. And so we have a tendency to disappoint ourselves when we don't perform in the way that we think we should. So, my suggestion if you're setting goals, set them smaller, attainable. They like to call them SMART goals. Um, you're not in a clinical setting, but setting a SMART goal is helpful overall. Um, Use positive self talk. We spend so much time speaking to ourselves negatively that we often don't explore how we can speak to ourselves positively. There is always a song and a dance going on in my head. And I hate to keep using myself as an example, but I'm the expert on me. So, and me having used these skills, so I can just speak to them because again, I've used the skill. So, Yeah, so just really using the positive self-talk. I tell clients all the time to identify the things that are positive about them, highlight those things, talk to yourself about those things, remind yourself of those things. Sing in your head if you can, dance if you can, do whatever it is that kind of creates joy in your life. Because honestly, if you're struggling with depression and anxiety, negative is going to be at the forefront of your mind almost always. So, building a growth mindset, that's absolutely important also. So, operating from the mindset of growth. That's funny to me. So the reason why I think that's important is, I'll give you an example I think I gave in a previous video. I had a client who, there was an assignment due. She turned it in at 11:59. Um, and this assignment derived from this really great idea she had, and people at her internship was like, oh, well, the judge at her internship was like, go ahead, write it up, do it. I'll talk about it with this committee of judges to see where it goes. And, she turned in the assignment what she thought was late and it had some typos. Anyway, when she came into session, she was distraught. And I said, well, look at it this way. Don't go in and apologize for this, apologize for that. Because to me, if you're never going to do it again, that's fine. Just tell yourself that. Don't tell them that, because that to me brings about a whole other problem. So if I'm not going to do something again, I'm going to ensure that I not do it, and that's more on me than it is the person. So anyway, what I told her to do is just kind of go to that person and say, hey, how did the meeting go? Did the memo help? And then let them know, hey, I saw a couple of typos after I emailed it to you. I emailed you another copy so that you can file that one without the typos. Well, the feedback that she received, because she came to that person with like a growth question versus, oh, I'm so sorry, I did such a bad job. She received wonderful feedback. Wonderful feedback. The person was really excited about her work, really appreciated her work, and she didn't have to, feel bad about herself afterwards. So I really loved, sharing that experience with that client. So how to improve self-regulation? Be mindful of your thoughts and feelings. Build distress tolerance, right? So become uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Do it little bits at a time, because if you do it too much at one time, you're just overall not going to feel great. And it can cause problems for you in the end. Find ways to manage difficult emotions. You have to find a way to just kind of express things. I just suggested that a client go to a rage room, like some of that pent up anger that is hard for them to verbally express right now, maybe express physically, since they're having such difficulty giving it a voice. Not to mention sublimation, which is just kind of a coping strategy. You sublimate that anger into breaking things in a healthy way. So sublimation is basically taking an unhealthy emotion and expressing it in a healthy way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a very, very good coping strategy. So look at challenges as opportunities. Like if something is hard or difficult, don't shy away from it. Embrace it. Like, okay, that's fine. Let me figure it out. And look at challenges. Well, I find sometimes people are afraid of no, and they find that challenging. So I kind of stuck there because I it's not don't take no for an answer, but don't be afraid of no. No is an answer. And so there may be a yes in there. So I'm one that's always looking for a yes. Okay. So you may not want this sock with this shoe, but do you want a cleaner? You want something to clean your shoes with. So, practice communication skills. Sometimes you have to practice conversation, especially if you're not socially savvy. It's okay to practice communication. Recognize you have a choice in how you respond. That is one of my favorite things because I tell people all the time, like, you don't have to respond negatively to someone because they responded negatively to you. You don't have to. You can also not have a response, right? You can tell that person, you know what? I don't know how I feel about that right now. I think I need some time to process it. And, hopefully we can discuss it later. Another way you can just kind of self regulate is called cognitive reframing, which is just a fancy way of just saying changing your thinking. Change your thought patterns and your emotional responses to stressors, to people. Work on accepting your emotions, right? I feel disappointed by people when they don't do this, that, and the other. Accept that you feel that disappointment so that you can eventually communicate that disappointment, because sometimes we will feel a certain way and then we'll negate it by saying, well, maybe I was overreacting, or maybe I was doing this, or you give the person a pass, or you give them an excuse without even addressing the issue because you haven't accepted your emotions. And it's going to be very important to do that, right? Um, because if you're in a relationship with people, they should understand that, okay, this is a problem, right? So when you add it all up, your self awareness, your self regulation, those things should just really improve your social skills, right? And if those things improve your social skills, you can begin to ask open ended questions about, people so that you can start to understand their emotions better, right? You start to take note of other people's social skills so that you can either improve yours or just understand that person better. You'll have good eye contact. You won't be. I don't want to say you'll have good eye contact, but rather you can practice good eye contact. You can practice your social skills. You can show interest in others. You can just do all these great things once you learn how to regulate and you're more aware of yourself. You'll feel less awkward, right? You'll embrace who you are as a human. And then you'll build intimate, not intimacy, empathy. I'm having a rough time with these words here this week. So, being empathetic is just being willing to share your feelings, right? You engage in a cause such as community projects because you're willing to share your feelings. You're also willing to think outside of yourself, right? You're ready to listen to other people to understand how they're feeling. You practice loving kindness meditation. That's very important. Um, Self soothing is a part of that loving kindness meditation because I don't ever want a client not to take care of themselves when they're taking care of other people. Make yourself a priority also. When you build empathy, you talk to new people. A lot of times people stay angry with one another because they haven't spoken to one another. They haven't identified how they feel, communicate how they felt, and then identify and ask the person how they feel. You may not agree, but you can have empathy for where someone is. Because you imagine yourself in that person's shoes, right? Um, another thing with emotional intelligence will help to do, and it goes back to a previous video, is it helps with your motivation, right? Um, you avoid using extrinsic rewards, meaning you don't look for outside sources to reward you for doing something, right? Because you can lose motivation fast if you're doing it for someone else. So you're looking more for that intrinsic reward, meaning I feel good when I get up and do things. You celebrate your results more. You focus on setting small and measurable goals. I talked about that in a previous video. You challenge yourself. You're using again that intrinsic motivation to challenge yourself, to best yourself. I love it when they had that ad about it's me versus me and not anyone else. And then you work better with people when you really when you work on your emotional intelligence. It's just very important. So when people say that they're emotionally intelligent and they mention that they're self-aware, there's other components. Self-awareness is one part of it. It's not the whole part, which is again why I said in the beginning I giggle when people say that, because right after they say that, they are emotionally intelligent. They do or say something that counters that. Like, okay, gotcha. So hopefully this video was helpful. We'll go to the next video soon. Thank you so much for your grace and just working with me, getting tongue tied, and apparently Elmo is having trouble with big words. So I will see you on the next video. You guys have a good day. Bye.